Welcome to Bening Podcast, continuation from the last episode, first episode. Today, again, I am accompanied by Pak Eko and Pak Kostup. And today, Pak Eko will present again about the simplicity and complexity of the EV comparison, EV and ICE. It may be a little bit technical, but hopefully all the viewers still can follow, and hopefully there will be a very interesting conversation, not just for engineer, but for all viewers. So, Pak Eko, please start.
All right, Pak. So I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, Pak.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So today let's start with a little bit more of technical detail that probably Pak Kostup and myself will connect a lot because we are both engineers as well as Pak Eka. So take a look at this picture now. I think mechanical engineer, we know how complex is an ICE is. So the engine itself consists a lot of components, and there are small components that build an engine itself. And this is not everything yet. So on top of an engine, there's a transmission that is connected to engine. There's another set of complexity here. And from this ICE technology that we have today, we are going to move to this type of technology, which is an EV. So electric motor engine looks just like this, including the gearbox, everything is here. So without imagining, we can see comparison of these two pictures itself says the story. How complex is an ICE engine comparing to how simple is an EV engine. This is one way of showing a different complexity. There's another way next that I would like to share as well. And the reason that we are comparing this complexity and how simple is an EV is with less component of an EV, it is immediately we can say that EV will have less cost and time to produce. This is on the automaker side. And we can also say that it has less cost and time to maintain on the customer side. So these two topics that we will further discuss later. So the next way of expressing how different it is between ICE and the other technologies, I will touch on a different kind of technology in between ICE to EV. So this is a normal ICE, so internal combustion engine. Be it a gasoline or diesel engine, is the same. This is a tank, goes to the engine will drive the drivetrain. And the next one is a conventional hybrid, whereby is in a simple term is the normal engine that generate power. It will be used to drive a motor, and as well as to store in a battery. Then in a certain time, the battery will drive the motor, and if it needs a bigger power, then the engine will drive again the car itself. So this is how the conventional hybrid works. Now, this is what we have been discussing, which is an electric vehicle. So 100% electric vehicle. It's purely a motor, so electric motor who drive the car itself. So from battery, it will generate power to drive the motor. and at the end motor will runs the vehicle itself. Yeah. So it's driven by motor. The difference with the hybrid is that the motor here is a high power, high output power, whereby for hybrid normally it's a small output power. Yeah. And I would like to bring one more engine type that recently has been launched as a mass market car. It's not something new, but it has been promoted widely by one of the Japanese automaker, which is they call it as e-power. Yeah. So if I can say that actually it is a kind of EV with a power bank on the go. So the power bank itself is a small engine. The comparison with this hybrid is normally this engine is quite it's a normal engine. On the other hand, for this type of technology, they are using a smaller engine even to drive a bigger car. Yeah. So it's just a motor, electric motor with battery, and then the engine is only used to charge the battery. Yeah. So very interesting. We can discuss further with Pak Kostup later. Actually, why there are so many things. There are so many different power plant. There are so many different technology that is proposed by a car maker, by the OEMs. Will this solution like hybrids and e-power is it an intermediate solution in between the transformation from gasoline to full EV? Will it be something that will be short-lived, or something that is medium-lived, probably in within 1 decade? Something like what we know in computer or consumer electronics last time was a floppy disk, DVD, Blu-ray even very short. Yeah. So before everything goes online, now will this technology also some kind of that kind of solution that only live for a certain period of time, which will not be developed further. And lastly, we should not forget about hydrogen. So there's a hydrogen car. There are two types whereby it can use a normal ICE with hydrogen, and there's another one which is fuel cell hydrogen. So these two also another type of technology that can solve, or as a research say that it can also contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gas. So we should take a look at that again. On the next slide, I would like to introduce you to this interesting platform that Volkswagen in this picture. So Volkswagen has these two platforms developed recently, not too long ago. So they started with MQB. In German, they say modulare Querbaukasten, or in English, it calls as modular transverse matrix. So basically, it's an ICE platform. And then just a few years ago, they have developed a new platform for electric vehicle, which they call MEB, or modulare Antriebsbaukasten, a modular electrification toolkits. And what interests me with this info from Volkswagen news website is that the statement from Volkswagen itself. So Volkswagen said that even if the role of electric drive gains significance over the coming decade, Volkswagen will continue making vehicles with combustion engine. And then recently we also see news. We read or we watch news that the Toyota president, Mr. Akio Toyoda, said that in achieving carbon neutrality, the enemy is carbon dioxide, not internal combustion engine. So he's not, in other way, that he is not really a fan of EV. He is not against EV, but he also want to have the ICE still lives together, coexist together. So with that, I would close with the 3 topics that we would like to discuss here, Pak Kostop. So as usual, these are the topics that are proposed to discuss. First, with the condition that we have now, will EV be the sole winner or the only winner, or will the coexistency of the engines that we have now, many types of engine that we have now, will stay? This is first that we can discuss. The next one is, with many types of engine that I just present just now, there's a question that why automaker now make so many in-between solution, hybrid. Then from hybrid, there's another plug-in hybrid. Then another car maker offer this e-power, hydrogen ICE, and hydrogen fuel cell. So a lot of things, and I believe that it will have another impact, be it in infrastructure, be it in regulation. So even though we are aiming to the same direction, whereby to reduce the greenhouse effect, the solution can be varies. Yeah. Then the next one is we see how simple is the EV is comparing to the ICE structural and so on. And now maybe we could discuss this further after the next session. Then what stops the customer and the automaker itself from jumping into the trend of the EV? For instance, Mr. Toyoda already says. So what stopped him from that? Yeah. Okay, Pak Eka, Pak Kostop, we can discuss now probably.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Eko, for your wonderful insights on the complexity side about the EV and also the ICE. The difference is substantial, and anybody can see that, right? The number of components getting reduced over time if you remove the ICE and the transmissions and associated parts to package those in the vehicle. Yeah, some parts would be still required when it goes to the EV, when the motor is an engine or the prime mover in the vehicle, but the number of components will drop down substantially. That's true. However, one point to note is, as you rightly mentioned in your next slide, which about the various fuels which could go in the vehicle, right? So say gasoline, diesel, or for that matter, hydrogen. So there were limited 3 fuels which could go to power the vehicle, right? But in case of a battery, right now there is no fixed chemistry available. So everybody is still researching what chemistry suits the best, whether it's the lithium ion or it's the sodium or it's A, B, C, or many more, right? Maybe just one perspective, that today a vehicle is available, right? And you need to drive overnight to reach a destination. Say it has to go, you need to travel, say 700 kilometers, 800 kilometers. You can very well do that. You can just take out your car and hit the highway and travel those kind of kilometers. But what is facilitating you to drive those kind of kilometers is the availability of, say, the gasoline or the diesel stations and the refueling part, which is able to cover that kind of, say, mileage or the range overnights and at a stipulated time. Just imagine if EVs have to do that, then you need to have that kind of a similar infrastructure first created so that it could be going to places. And also we need to understand the time which would take, in terms of the refueling time or recharging time. If that is there, the same scenarios could be repeated and people can join in. So bringing to the points of discussions which you rightly said. So if we start with point number 3, like what's stopping the customer or automaker to jump into the EV trend? Maybe availability of infrastructure is one such aspect. Secondly, is also about the different or the variety of chemistries which are available, which may need a furthermore standardization, as you rightly pointed about the regulations part, or even the, maybe a standard approach in terms of the battery chargers or the batteries and all stuff, so that those could be exchanged for not limiting to a one brand. You remember there was a case in mobile phones when the mobile phones were initially launched. So each phone had a different charger.
Correct.
So which is true for today's EVs as well. But now you have limited to, say, an iPhone charger and, say, a Type-C charger or a micro charger. So similar things will have to evolve. And then only, we would be able to comment better what exactly is the real scenario. Today, it's a complete turbulence. So to have a further visibility, it is going to take some time before things start getting clearer. But statements coming from the two topmost global automotive players, Volkswagen and Toyota, those are giving the right message or the right hint that it's the coexistence.
Yeah. So this is interesting, Yapa. So other than these two topmost auto producer, so Volkswagen is still the top, Toyota is also the top, now second or first. They are always competing. But it's very interesting that these two top automaker having very similar statement, although the background might be different. Yeah, the background might be different. Other than that, a few days ago, there's another news about the other German automaker, which is focusing on hydrogen power car. Yeah, so it is known BMW has launched a hydrogen power car a few years ago on their flagship Model 7 series, and then now they are going back to that research that they are developing hydrogen power car again, of course in conjunction with Toyota. So the next, it will be interesting to see where does this trend goes. Is everybody going to be in line with Tesla to go all the way to EV, or there will be still different major car maker will have different solution, and all are coexisting as long as the final target that we want to achieve is achieved.
Understood, but true that. Your thoughts, Paika?
Very interesting for me. So let me take up on what Pak Kaustup say regarding the charger. charger for phone that now, through the process of many types of charger, becomes only to either iPhone or Type-C. So in relation to that information and that fact, I also would like to say that on the third point of the key topic that was discussed is what stopped customer and automaker from jumping into the trend of EV is because above all this complexity, there is not yet found a simple solution or a simple way that is accepted and can be adopted in a massive scale. Like Pak Wasup say, now is everybody is how to say it, feeling around where is the right combination. Yeah, right combination. Like you want to go 800 kilometers, okay, you have to have the right infrastructure. Now everything is simple. You just go into the car and drive and fill at the petrol station and so on and so forth. So transferring from the ICE ecosystem to the EV ecosystem, that simplicity is not yet clear for everybody. From Paiko today presentation, my understanding. And that comes to the number 2 point. Why so many things? Because it is still not clear. So every actor in this electric vehicle industry or topic is trying to find the best way. And personally, I still also cannot see which one will be the dominating until now. Okay, maybe that will come to the first point that a future that we can see, it will be like a coexistence and not one dominates all.
True.
Because so many things must be considered in making the infrastructure. You must have regulation, you must have investment money, and you must have technology and everything and all those details. So I also mentioned like in handphone, what is the standard thing? Is it like a Type-C thing only that will be adopted? And how all this actor will come together and finalize, okay, we agree like a Type-C charger.
Yeah.
No other thing will be used because each actor also have their own ego, right?
Yeah.
Yes. They will say that is the best.
Yeah, but Paika, just to support what you just said, what happened in the handphone industry, maybe we are seeing similar trends in the EV happening. A few weeks back, there was a consensus between the two-wheeler manufacturers, say like Honda, Yamaha, KTM, Piaggio, about the swappable batteries. So at least there is a common ground, that the batteries could be swapped between the different models and different brands, which is maybe a step in the right direction, so to say, because now at least there's a flexibility in terms of, okay, person has to go from point A to point B and he needs to charge the battery, and if that particular brand is not available, he's still open to go to some another brand and get his battery swapped and continue the journey. So this is actually available as a proof of concept, or rather in practice in Taiwan, where you can see the swappable battery concepts very beautifully deployed by the companies like Gogoro and the electric companies back there, EV companies back there in Taiwan. So what we need to do is, or as everybody says, these things we talk about, debate, discuss, we need to ensure, we need to remember one thing, that we may have plan A, plan B, plan C, we may have multiple plans, but we need to realize that we have only one planet. There is no planet B, there's only planet Earth, and that's only one, right?
Yeah, it's very true. But if I may add, Paiko and Pakostup, this process of EV presented today by Paiko and conversation between Paiko and Pakostup reminds me of Sean Carroll, a theoretical physicist. You can find it in YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that to demonstrate a complexity is you take a cup, a glass of coffee and milk. When the coffee and milk is clearly separated, it is simple.
Mm.
But when you start stirring up those coffee and milk together, it becomes complex. But when the coffee and milk is already mixed perfectly, it becomes simple again.
Mm.
So I think this our discussion and the journey of the ICE ecosystem to EV ecosystem is now in the steering phase.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Everything is still around, and we don't have any simple picture yet, which will be the solution for planet Earth, not only for the human, but for the planet Earth. This is my takeaway, and it is very surprising for me that from watching a theoretical physicist, Sean Carroll, and listening to his audiobook explaining about simplicity, complexity, and this is a very real case in front of my eyes that we are discussing.
True. So maybe just to add one more perspective on the coexistence part. See, coexistence, we are talking about one of the aspect, which is about the automotive aspect. But if you see from a humanity perspective, there has always been a coexistence. So say we humans are social animals, right? So there are wild animals, there are domesticated animals, and there are insects and everything. So that has been into coexistence, right? But only due to our actions, these species or these, the inhabitants of this place, maybe inhabitants prior to us as well, like they may be dating it before the humanity or the human life existed. So they are still in coexistence. So there's a law which they follow. Maybe we are only the ones who are trying to break the laws and try to create something for us. But when we mean coexistence, we need to consider or bring into the aspects of the overall picture. Or say when you're moving, say in a helicopter, you can see from a 5,000 feet, you can at 10,000 feet, 50,000 feet. So we will have different views and different perspectives as we move up or horizontally or whichever way, right? So, but the goal has to be clear. Whatever we do is in the betterment of the planet where we coexist or cohabitate.
Yeah. So to add on, what Pak Kostup just mentioned, as that we are a human is a coexistence creature, which is very true, and that we will discuss further, Pak Kostup, in the next session, the third topics, whereby it gets more complex in terms of the environment that links to this EV development itself or EV application itself.
True, Pa. I completely agree that.
Yeah. So I think this statement from Paiko wraps up our today conversation and presentation. And I think that the main takeaway is that it seems that coexistence is the only way for humanity if it wants to survive in this planet Earth.
Mm.
Do you want to add something, Pak or Pak Kostup?
I agree, Pa. I second to that. The coexistence is the way. How do we coexist is something it will get defined as we progress and evolve over a period of time. So basically, it's a wait and watch game, and maybe take the right directions, not the easy ones, not necessarily the easy ones, but the right and which are in the true spirit of making an impact and a betterment of all individuals and society at large.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agree to that, Pak Eka and Pak Kostup.
Yeah. That is perfectly said, and the good solution is not the easy solution.
It's not an easy solution.
Yeah. So we must come back to what Pak Kostup say, the spirit, what is our spirit, our coexistence with nature and with the planet.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Paika, I'm still continuing with the same message which I had highlighted in my first presentation, which is on the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which has been the philosophy, and which is, let's say, on the coexistence part. So that's basically continued and getting amplified as we progress when we see the complex solutions and also see what could be the better ways of doing it or addressing these challenges. So it stands there. Yeah.
I agree. So maybe Paeko and myself also can contribute to some of point in that philosophy, maybe in the next topic. I also want to say something about that. Thank you very much, Pak Eko and Pak Kostup. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
And
thank
also
you.
for the
thank you,
all the listener, thank you, and please bear with us, 3 engineers. We are getting on to the more interesting topic in the next episode. Thank you very much.